Good morning or good afternoon, everybody, depending on where you're zooming in with us today. I am so pleased to welcome you to today's very special edition of MetalCon Online, being presented by the Metal Coffee Shop. Today, we have a panel with us discussing the metal contractors and how they can share the real deal. We have a panel being hosted and moderated by Heidi Ellsworth with the Coffee Shops. Our panelists today include Bobby Mesmer with RMG Erectors and Contractors, Constructors, I apologize. Patrick Cochran with Red Dogs Roofing, Anthony Ortega with Viatel Metal Concepts, and Nigel Kreff with Elevate Structures. On the screen right here, if you are looking for your AIA credits, we do have today's agenda, which is our learning objectives. If you are an AIA member, please just take a quick snapshot or focus on the screen for a few more seconds. I'm going to move on now. Because of the sensitive nature of the topics we will be discussing today, I do have an antitrust statement to read out to everyone. We are bringing together competing businesses across all different aspects of the metal construction industry, and we must address antitrust laws and ensure that we are not violating or giving the appearance of violating any of these laws. All the subjects that we will avoid today are terms and conditions of sale, prices and quotations, customers and markets, and future company plans. If any of these are discussed or if any of these are presented within the chat or the Q&A, they will be deleted immediately and we will move on. So please do not present any of these topics just so we can all fall within the antitrust laws of the United States of America, where we are currently all being hosted from. Up next, on our next version of MetalCon Online, coming up on September 24th, we will have a preview of a session that will be at MetalCon in 2025. Greg Andrews of ABIS will be presenting Breaking Tradition, How Owners and Operators Can Unlock Growth and Real Automation Potential. It's going to be a fantastic session, so if you want to get some previews of what's going to be coming up, make sure you check that out. As you just heard, I talked about MetalCon. MetalCon is coming up in under 3 months. I can't believe it. I'm sure you guys can't either. MetalCon is the #1 metal construction trade show in the world, and we are the only show dedicated strictly to the use of metal in design and construction across the industry. We're so excited to announce that we are going to be doing a very cool barn dominium frame, and it's a building for a cause. The entire structure will be donated to a fantastic veterans retreat in Montana, and we're so proud to be bringing that together. So make sure you check out our website for further information on that. And if you want to get involved in that, let us know. We're always happy to hear what you have to say, and we want you to be involved as much as we are. We do have a lot of additional information about our show, from 35 plus education sessions. We have dozens of educational credits, from Florida contractor credits, anyone who needs those, you might want to think about attending this year, to AIA credits, including a full year's worth of HSWs. We also have hundreds of different individuals coming to network, and we've got lots of different networking options, from Metal and Mimosas for the ladies online today to the Young Professionals events that we'll also be hosting. We're so excited to have you, and we hope you can come and experience the networking that we have to offer, along with everything else. We also do demos, hands-on training, and a lot more. So whatever you need for your business or the world of metal construction, we got you covered. I'm also pleased to tell you that if you use the code webinar, just the word webinar, you can get $30 off your registration to MetalCon this year. So please feel free to use that, and we look forward to seeing you in Las Vegas, October 21st through the 23rd of this year. If you need to receive a certificate of attendance today or AIA credits, there's going to be a survey that's going to pop up on the screen and that you can fill out, and that's just so we can get your name, email address, and get you that certificate. There's a few additional questions. If you'd like to answer those, please do. And finally, thank you so much for joining us today. I am going to hand this over to Heidi Ellsworth with MetalCoffeeShop, who's going to lead the rest of this webinar for you, and I will see you at the end.
Sounds great. Thank you so much, Kaylin. We are honored to be here today, and we have a distinguished panel of contractors who we are ready to talk about the real deal. What is happening out there? My name is Heidi Ellsworth, and I am the owner of the coffee shops, which includes Metal Coffee Shop, which many of you are familiar with. We are very active at MetalCon and in the industry all year long with all kinds of education. And so let's get going. Let's start some introductions and start talking about metal construction. First of all, like I said, my name is Heidi Ellsworth. I am the owner of the coffee shops, and today specifically Metal Coffee Shop. I've been in the industry for over 30 years. I'm very active and used to, as a little small fact, back in the day, I used to write them for Metal Mag, and I wrote the Erectors Corner. So there you go. We have a long history of being in that metal space, and I'm very honored to be your moderator for today's panel. I am very happy to introduce Bobby Mesmer. Bobby, thank you for being here today and welcome to MetalCon Live.
Heidi, good to see you. Thanks for
Uh,
having me. This is good. This is an exciting day, huh? Got a lot going on today.
I love it. Whenever we can get together, it is so great. Can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your company?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Bobby Mesmer. I'm the CEO of RMG Erectors and Constructors. We are, as this time, we are the largest pre-engineered building erector in the world, erecting over 10 million square feet of buildings each and every year. And we are also one of the only vertically integrated pre-engineered companies. We have a full engineering and detailing department, as well as we also do manufacturing, and we have multiple manufacturing partners. So we're providing a full service out there. One of the big caveats to how we do this is we don't sub anything out. Everybody is payrolled employees. So we don't sub out the engineering, we don't sub out the detailing, and we don't sub out the erection, which classifies us a little different than most people in the business. So we are very proud and look to grow the pre-engineered building market pretty aggressively and give it a better name than what it has in the industry currently.
We thank you for everything you do, all the things that you're bringing forward. It's great. And for most of all, for being here today. Patrick, I am so happy to have you. Can you introduce yourself and tell us about your business?
Absolutely. So my name is Patrick Cochran, CEO of Red Dogs Roofing. We have an office in Fitchburg, Massachusetts, Waterford, Connecticut, and Sarasota, Florida. We focus both on residential and commercial roofing and siding, with a good portion of that business in the metal roofing and siding as well. So yeah, just a contractor here to kind of, share our knowledge with what we're seeing in the industry today. Very excited to be here, Heidi. So thank you for the invite.
Thank you. And I am so proud to serve on the NRCA. So we've had a lot of these discussions, and I'm ready to talk more today. Nigel, I am so excited to have you here. Thank you so much. Can you introduce yourself and tell us about your company?
Yeah, I am too, Heidi. Thanks for having me. The VP of Sales at Elevate Structures. But like Bobby, we're vertically integrated, but we're in the light gauge business. We have a industry disrupting, innovative product called Alpha Framing System that we primarily have put the product into storage, but we're now building into living spaces and hospitality. We're part of a broader group under the Central States flag. So we have manufacturing, procurement, logistics, engineering, design, construction, and obviously field services out the other side of the construction. So great to be here. I'm happy to be here with Anthony, Patrick, and Bobby, and I'm looking forward to the chat.
Me too. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And I am thrilled. We've recently had Anthony on a podcast on Metal Coffee Shop. Anthony, thank you so much for being here today. Can you introduce yourself and tell us about your company?
Yeah, appreciate it, Hyde. This is Anthony Ortega, COO and partner with Viotel Metal Concepts. We are a roofing and metal envelope company that primarily services the high-end resorts and residences here in Park City in Utah, surrounding areas. We've got a passion for metal and are really excited to be part of this panel and have this discussion.
I have to tell you, with all of you, I've seen your projects, I've seen what you've done. things of beauty. The case studies are just out of this world, and so I'm excited. So let's get going. Let's start talk. I do want to remind everybody that the chat is open. Both Kaylin and I are on, and we're going to be monitoring that. We like a conversation here at the Metal Coffee Shop, so please bring it on. Questions, thoughts, comments. If you want to share a few emojis now and then, love it. Whatever you want to do, we'd like to have you engaged in this conversation for the next hour. So, gentlemen, let's start out with really the state of where we're at in the metal industry. What are you seeing out there and what is happening? And you know what, Anthony, let's start with you. I'd love to hear what's happening in Utah and what's happening in your markets.
Yeah, so I think everybody here can speak to the crazy amount of opportunity that there is in metal. I think that there's double-digit growth across the nation for metal, and specifically here in ski resort economies and market footprints like Park City, we're seeing metal be the preferred choice for roofing and exteriors. A lot of that has to do with sustainability, longevity, and then obviously design intent from architects as they get comfortable with how they can use metal in creating these projects. So we're seeing big spikes in those categories for us, especially here in these Park City kind of areas.
Yeah, that's interesting because we see different things across the country, especially different segments. Patrick, what are you seeing? I mean, going from Park City to the Northeast, what are you seeing along the eastern, from Florida up?
Yeah, so I think residentially for us, metal roofing has stayed very consistent, even on the commercial side. I don't think it's much of like an uptick for us, but it's definitely staying pretty steady. Some of the other services that we offer on the residential side, we've seen a little bit of more of a slowdown as far as like leads go. But metal for us is a very specific customer, and it stayed pretty healthy over the last, 18 months or so.
Yeah. And are you, as you kind of are looking at that, what are some of the things that you think are driving that interest and that consistency? Because this is kind of the year of uncertainty, but what's that consistency with consumers that want metal?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I think for us in particular, like our customers that want metal are very much reaching out for it. So it's a educated consumer, right? So when they're reaching out to us, a lot of the time they've done their homework, especially with the metal. So they really know typically what they want, and we sit down with them, we go over options, and I think because it's a specific customer, I think those customers are kind of educating themselves on the front end, and then they kind of know that they want metal prior to going into it. So I think that's helped, and I think those consumers know that investing in metal, you're really going to have the longevity of the product, right? So I think that's kind of what's driving it, because with that uncertainty, they want to make sure that their investment is going to last.
Right, and putting that together. So Nigel, on kind of looking at your world and what you're doing, what are you seeing with the market fluctuations and just kind of some of the trends?
Yeah, it's quite regional. Obviously, we're building, the four corners coast to coast, right? So we have a pretty large overview of the markets in general. What we do see is that people are relatively price sensitive right now. So there is a want to use metal. There is a want to go that route. Cold form steel, especially in our business. Part of the hold is, we've come off a massive sugar high where money was cheap and everybody was hard charging, right? So the new normal is very different than what it used to be. And then there's uncertainty in the market. Now, the good thing about it, if you're ready to go and you're ready to start making decisions and moving forward with metal, the market is stable because the demand is lower, right? Because of the uncertainty. So for us, there's pockets. It's very cyclical. West Coast is slow to respond to what we're seeing in the rest of the country, simply because the entitlement process is so much longer. But in Florida and into the Carolinas, business is booming because the demand is there from the population being transit and people moving into those areas. So every market has a very unique perspective. And regionally for us, that's how we run our business, just based on region. We don't have homogenous look at markets.
It's interesting, and we had a question come in that I'd like Nigel to ask you, and then want to take the whole question plus this one to Bobby. But we had a question from Brian. Thank you so much, Brian, on how have tariffs impacted your business? So Nigel, can you start us out on that?
Yeah, so we're in a bit of a unique position because we are integrated all the way from the mill through to the final installed product. We had made a decision at the start of last year that we knew there might be some fluctuation coming in the market. So we decided to look at the futures and work with the futures and bring stability to what we do for our product offering. I'll go back to, previously 18 months to 24 months ago when things were extremely volatile. It's because demand was so high. And so if tariffs, went up or pricing went up, the local domestic mills could get an easy get 10 or 12 points. And then, import steel had to fight against that. Now, because of low demand, there is stability. So we've seen maybe 100 or 150 point increase or $150 per ton across this year. But our steel is all domestic, so we were able to bring a bit more stability into that as well. So we don't use any import steel.
That's interesting. Bobby, you work globally. Talk to us about the overall market fluctuations, what you're seeing on trends, and then adding the tariffs on that.
Yeah, I mean, in my sector, in the pre-engineered sector, obviously it's continuously growing. It always has grown. Everybody wants to go pre-engineered because of, the efficiency of it, right? The efficiency through design, the efficiency through manufacturing process, the erection. And so, we're seeing that. We are seeing a little bit of back and forth in certain buildings in our industry, like big warehouses will go pre-engineered with a tilt wall, and then they'll do instead of doing a standing seam roof, one of our products, a metal roof, they're starting in some cases going back to a TPO style roof, right? But then what's happening is over time we're seeing those owners want to come back to the metal roof because the TPO roof doesn't perform the same over time that the metal roof does. So we see a lot of that secular that secular choice in the business, and when you talk to the end user, or you talk to the architect who's designing the project, a lot of them go and they put a TPO roof on because they had a bad experience with a metal roof or a metal building per se, and and that's where it stems from. And really what we try to sell to them is, look, you got to convince the people to hire the right person, and you have to follow through with the right process, protocols, and procedures. The right warranty on the roof, the right maintenance agreement for the roof, when it's all done. Nobody advises anybody of that in our industry, and that's where the gap lies, because the warranties are only as good as the maintenance agreement. And when an owner has an issue, that's where it stops, and everybody says, no, we can't warrant what you're asking for because you didn't maintain it. And so I think it's just education in it. And I think for everybody listening, who wants to consider it, especially the designers who wants to consider metal in residential, commercial, or any other application, and do pre-engineered, light gauge, and or metal roofs, metal walls, you definitely want to do that because the applications are so broad. There's so many concepts in what we can do, and so many different things that are just so long lasting anymore, and that really stand the test of time from maintenance and everything else. So I think, we're seeing the trend. It's still balancing, but I think it's also market areas, like the Northeast kind of still wants to hang on to a certain type of construction. The Southeast and South Central wants to hang on to their type of construction. So it's very different in different markets throughout the country. And us being national and international, we're seeing like pre-engineered is huge through Central America. It's huge in Canada, and then you see the markets really shift here in the US very dynamically. So very, very interesting to see what's going on there. And then to the tariff question, I echo with what Nigel said. I mean, with us, as well, so we have some manufacturing partners where the tariff, gets passed through to us. We pass it through to the end user. Have the tariffs affected business? Yeah, I think it affected the economy overall. This year is a weird year, right? I mean, Heidi, you said it. And I think it's a weird year because everybody's stalling right now. And I think it's more they're stalling because of interest rates as opposed to tariffs. I think that they can look at the tariff over the course of time on a new construction and say, I can absorb that into the project on certain things and still get my project done. But if the interest rates came down a little bit, that would help them kickstart the projects. And I think, the mills, they're the ones that push out it to companies like Nigel and like myself. We have no way to deal with that, but we try to price hold and we try to deal with that impact as best as we can, because you still have to be competitive in the market. Even though everybody gets the same price increase per se, you have to figure out a way to be competitive and what to do with that. So you want to hand off a good product that's not overly expensive. And what's interesting is in that, like, sometimes you'll see a price increase that's a tariff increase, and then you'll see it get reeled back a few months later. I think we're starting to see that now into third and fourth quarter. I think you're going to start to see some of that tariff impact start to roll back a little bit right now, which I think will be excellent for the industry and how and kickstarting these projects and getting people to really get things moving forward.
Yeah, I think everybody's, because I think Patrick said it too, it's consistent, but everybody's looking for that little bit of growth that we've been kind of used to that as we've been the last couple of years. And I think a big part of it too is the demand. And so, like, I think it's really interesting. And Patrick, I'm going to start with you because you kind of said this, but really you're seeing certain areas the demand is not growing, but in certain areas and in metal, we really are seeing that demand. So what are some of is it mostly residential? Kind of, what are some of the things that you're seeing that's driving that demand and in which markets?
Yeah, so I think demand is staying very steady for us and still pretty good on the commercial side, right? In both in the Northeast and in Florida. I think residentially, Florida's at an interesting point, just kind of in general. Post-storm market in the Sarasota area. So that's always interesting to kind of work past. But I think for us, as far as like metal goes, we consistently do, the same amount of projects. We see the demand kind of being there. And I think it's because, as I said earlier, like consumers are making sure that if they're going to make this investment with their money, that it's going to last, right? And in Florida, you have, all the hurricanes. So metal is a great option for customers down there. And then in the Northeast, especially when you get deeper into New Hampshire and Vermont, the snow load's going to come off the roof and that. So the consumers that are looking for metal for us are definitely very well educated. And I think that's why we're kind of seeing that steady demand, because it's a very specific customer and client for us on the residential side. I think roofing overall, all the markets are very saturated right now. And it's kind of at an interesting point because, as Bobby and Nigel talked about, it's almost like it's like right there, but the interest rates and everything else are kind of keeping it at bay, if you will. And I think, as Nigel pointed out earlier, that's probably really what's helping, making sure that pricing doesn't kind of skyrocket, so.
You're going through that makes sense. Anthony, I'd love to talk to us a little bit because Park City obviously is kind of its own ecosystem, and you specialize in high end, but what, with the beautiful projects you do, both metal and the whole building envelope with the cladding and the siding and everything like that, it seems like sustainability and fire, the elements are driving the demand, especially out in the West. What are you seeing kind of are your customers caring too much about the fact that it's sustainable, or are they more concerned about fire, or they just want the look? What's kind of driving that?
No, I mean that's a great read. The luxury residential here in the Rockies and in Park City, metal, there's always metal aspects to the project, whether it's fascias, whether it's soffits, whether you're doing exteriors. A lot of the HOAs out here have a certain aesthetic that they're trying to create, right? So you'll have X amount of stone you can do X amount of wood, and then you got to do the rest in metal. The homeowners and the architects are loving the performance side of that. Some check the box for sustainability, right? Most of it's driven through aesthetics. Out here in Utah, we deal with the WUI, which is the Wildlife Urban Interface.
Hmm.
And so we're seeing a lot of Arizona, California architects that are coming to Utah and building for their affluent clients. And this is hot on their mind, right? They just went through all the California fires, and metal is a hot topic. Like, hey, how do we make sure we take advantage of this? Where can I incorporate metal and metal design scopes to help protect this asset or this home that these clients are building? So I think it's coming first from design intent and the great things that you can do with metal at a very high
Hmm.
level. Then the performance part of it, which is why, which is the fire resistance, ACM, which is a cladding system, has great fire rating. A lot of commercial projects use it. We're seeing higher and higher demand for that. Not just from like a cladding wall panel standpoint, but from like fascias and soffits because it performs so well. So we're seeing a lot of enhancements to the facade side of these homes
Yeah.
um, with regard to that.
And you know what, Anthony, a really good question that goes right to you. And it is, thank you so much for this question. It says, have you seen an increase in insulated metal roof panels, IMPs, on the demand? What's the percent of IMP roofing versus traditional metal roofs in your market? So are you seeing that?
Honestly, no, not the integrated IMPs. We're not typically dealing with a lot of that on the custom residential side of that. We're seeing a lot of that maybe in the mid-commercial tier kind of thing where you got tilt ups and they're wanting that kind of product. In the custom residential, at least on the roofing side, there is built out systems with insulation, right? And so you'll have insulation Ziegler, and then you'll put your wall panels to that, or you'll see cold roof systems underneath metal roofs. A lot of that is driven through R value for the homeowner. Hey, I'm trying to achieve X R value, whether it's, a R value of 15 or 30 or whatever it is. Um, but we're not like our business isn't doing any really IMPs right now, at least with the projects that we've got it that we're doing and that are in our pipeline. But I know that that is a big market, and it's seen a lot of steam in the last few years.
Okay.
I
And
think I
Bobby, I
can.
see you go. Yeah, I see you
Yeah, I
nodding.
can jump into that. We touch a lot of this. So, yeah, thanks for the question, Guillermo. The IMP market is a big market and it's growing, and it's funny because as the U.S. we actually track behind Europe. Europe is a massive IMP market, and we're just trying to catch up to that here in the U.S. The IMPs, from a performance standpoint, especially from an R value standpoint, they do perform overly better than a traditional Ziegler cavity fill R valued like R38 type system, built up system, and then a standard standing seam roof over top of it. We try to push the IMPs in certain markets. So like an IMP is better in a heavy rain market or a heavy snow load market. So in the Northeast, we try to convince customers like, look, go to an IMP roof because it's going to simplify install, it's going to simplify wet insulation, it's going to perform better. And you're not going to have the little bit of issues that you can have with a standard SSR style roof. And so really it becomes a design factor. And what it is too is there is a misconception that IMPs are extremely expensive. So when you look at them per the price per square foot, yes, they are an expensive item. But what you have to do is you have to factor in all of the right elements when you take out like your standard roof systems. So for us, You know, we always tell everybody, we just did this on a job currently, and we said to them, like, look, you know, you want to go to IMP. When you back out the standing seam metal roof, the actual full ProLiner or simple saver type of insulation systems, and then you put in and you factor in all the install price, because that's a big important thing. Designers need to talk to proper installers and factor in install prices when they're looking at comparing the caveats between two products. And everybody forgets to do that. They just, you know, a lot of designers will call us and they say, and we'll recommend an IMP panel, and they're like, IMP panels are so expensive. I'm like, no, they're not. It's within a certain range, and it's very, very close to each other. And when we show them, that's because they forgot to factor in the install of all that insulation that you have to put in, the banding systems, the liner systems, and then the installation of the roof, where you get more spread on an IMP panel. You go from a 24-inch wide roof to a 40 to 44-inch wide roof panel. So it's just, you know, the install happens a lot faster. So we're not seeing necessarily a big percentage of increase. It's more of we have to more educate the designers in the industry to go that way, and give them the proper education on it, as opposed, and what they need is they need to start dealing with other people to get all of the information and properly be educated with it, so they know how to design it into their projects. And thus then you'll see that percentage of IMPs increase in the industry. Yeah.
Interesting. Nigel, IMPs and also trends of the sectors that are booming.
Yeah, I'll just go to the sustainability and environmental real quick, Heidi. You know,
Yeah.
I think the sustainability is one thing, right? But environmental pressures that are being put on states to manage insurance companies coming into their states is a big, big thing that we're seeing. And that's why cold form steel is becoming more and more accepted into the Florida, the Californias, because of the environmental concerns out there. You know, insurance companies don't want to insure wood structures. They find it very difficult. Builder's risk is super high. Operational insurance is super high. So there is a lean into something that's more sustainable, more environmentally controlled, and cold form steel and steel as a whole and metal as a whole does that, right? So I think there's an issue with states working out how to get insurance companies to stay inside their state to insure their population. And that's a big concern for state legislators, because if people leave because they can't get insurance, clearly that's a problem. The IMPs, we see a lot of IMPs on our buildings, primarily used in walls. We don't put a whole lot of IMPs into roofs. I think part of the issue with IMPs, you know, there is a perception of cost, like Bobby spoke to. Consolidation inside that market, I think, is hurting the consumer a little bit in there as well. There's been quite a lot of consolidation in who produces IMPs. So we'll see how that shakes out over time. But aesthetically, they're pleasing, and there is value in putting them in for long term for us. For example, in storage facilities, we don't have to line the walls. It already has a liner on the backside of the IMP. So yeah, so there is a place for them. They are becoming more and more accepted. Municipalities are accepting them more and more, because you can put different colors into the wall patterns. You can break up the walls. It's a little bit easier than a single skin. And there is a place for them, to Bobby's point.
That's interesting. And we have another question that follows up on that. And Nigel, I'd love to start with you to kind of hear from the commercial side and where you're at and what you're doing. But they said, is there one particular type of metal roofing or metal siding that is really taking off more than others?
Commercially, no. All the standard profiles, you know, there's a lot of manufacturers producing the standard profiles. I would say there is a lot more box rib type panels being done, being called out more as far as being spec'd. You are seeing a few more ACM panels, to Anthony's point, coming into commercial, because they add a different aesthetic value than a rib panel or a flat gauged panel. So aluminum composite material offers a different look. On the roof, you know, we don't install screw down roofs. We haven't put down a screw down roof for probably 15 years. Everything is standing seam. The performance is better. The longevity is better. There's a price delta between those two products, obviously, but you're getting a far superior product. So municipalities, jurisdictions having authority are demanding that their buildings fit their vision. And so the old style R panel is going away. You don't see that for cladding very much anymore. They're mixing metals, they're mixing profiles, and they're mixing colors a lot more.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Patrick, I know you are doing metal and roofing and siding.
Mhm.
Are you seeing any changes in demand for the type of roofing, the type of siding?
So we're not. We pretty much stick to the few manufacturers that we work with directly and offer certain types of products. So we're not seeing any shift or change in that. But we kind of stick to what we know and what we do well.
Okay. Well, I have to tell
Yeah.
you I'm because on the Metal Coffee Shop, one of the things we're seeing huge demand for information, I guess, or research going on is with board and batten. The board and batten profiles that are coming out for siding. So Anthony, are you seeing that on the West with the metal siding?
Yeah, we've seen an uptick in those. We've seen a couple of projects go that way. I think what we're seeing in the market for particular types of roofing and siding is the phenomenon of oil canning, right? And so architects and clients are trying to figure out um, different designs to mitigate that issue with the light gauge material. To echo what Nigel is saying, the ACM, the aluminum composite material that is gaining popularity, especially here in the Rocky Mountain areas. One of the first things GCs and clients are asking us is like, hey, how do we avoid oil canning? Okay, well, you've got certain design or you've got certain installation techniques you can do to mitigate, but with a light gauge steel, even 22 gauge, you still can't guarantee it, right? And so we move them to that premium product, which gives us the flexibility to say, hey, look, this ACM product is going to give you the ability to go large format flat panels. You're going to be able to do curved fascias. You're going to be able to get a real flat look just because of the way that the product is designed. So as far as metal siding, like I think there's a huge opportunity in the residential side of things, and especially in the custom side of things, to figure out how to install ACM panels and make that work. You take what they're doing at the commercial level and you got to figure out how to apply it to the residential level of things. But there's huge opportunity there to solve a foundational issue that a lot of homeowners, especially in luxury residential, they're paying millions and millions of dollars for a home. They don't want cheap sheet metal to impact the design intent. We don't do fastener through panel for our roofing either. We use 1.5 to 2 inch mechanical, and that depends if you're trying to get a hydrostatic kind of roof, right? There's some sealant requirements to meet those specs, butyl lined ribs. You got butyl tape in your various flashing areas. So we're seeing more of that higher ribbed profile, and then it being mechanically locked in the market here, at least in the high snow elevation areas.
Yeah. Bobby, I'm seeing you agreeing. Any thoughts on that?
No, I wholeheartedly agree. I mean, it's Anthony and Patrick, everybody's kind of right on point here. I mean, there's so many applications that are coming out in the metal industry, and again, the oil canning is a big thing. And most of the time we see the oil canning issue, to echo what Anthony said, we see the oil canning issue being an issue of just the metal's too light. It's too light of a gauge and you're trying to make too much surface area out of something. So some of these like new age panels, dimples, textures that we're seeing the new metal texture panels. I don't deal in that business, but I pay attention to it, and it's exceptional product because it does cover what needs to cover from a design aesthetic standpoint. You won't see the oil canning as much as you see it, but no, I mean, I think it's I think the applications that are out there in the metal business to create the rain screen facades that you need, that additionally have the opportunity to not only weatherproof your house, your building, or whatever you're building, but to also insulate it as well, because we're seeing those applications go up higher, not just in an IMP panel, but like additional insulation board be able to be put behind the rain screen panel. I mean, it's just, you can increase the R value and become so much more environmentally conscious with the panels and with what you're doing than you can with anything else, for sure.
Say to everyone, this is going so great. We are having so many questions. So I am going to get to your questions. We may not get to all of our slides, which is okay, because this is all about you guys, our audience, finding out what the real deal is. So I have a question for Nigel, could kind of follow up on something you said. It said, can you provide an example of environmentally controlled metal roofing in California? What are some of the challenges?
Yeah, I saw that question pop up. I'm not sure I know how to answer that. The challenges of metal roofing is really acceptance within inside the jurisdiction having authority, right? Are you allowed to actually put a metal roof on your facility, your building? Do you meet the required permitting, and do you meet their quote city vision or whatever that looks like? The challenges obviously are well documented in the West right now. If you build a cold form steel facility with a metal roof, you have a non-combustible facility, right? So clearly that's advantageous if you're in an area that's prone to wildfires. And in Florida, for Patrick, he's down there, and Bobby Bill's down there, I'm sure as well. You have to meet Florida product approval, so you have to have longevity in the product. Asphalt shingles on a house meet Florida product approval because they meet a certain spec. However, do you get any longevity out of those if the hurricane comes through compared to a metal roof, right? Same in a wood structure versus cold form steel. So, environmentally, I can go into, hey, the mill uses 100% recycled steel for the coil that we manufacture out of. They use nuclear power to power the plants. They have recycled water to cool the steel as it's coming out of the pots after they molten it. So there's environmental and restraint things that they do there. But the reality is, you need something that you're paying somewhat of a premium for, which is metal. You need the longevity out of that. You need to be able to get the benefits that metal brings, and the life cycle out of metal roofing, the life cycle out of a cold form or pre-engineered structure, right, is so much greater than anything else that's around. And if you build out of concrete, you have carbon leaching out of concrete, right? So you have an environmental offset there out of the carbon leaching as well. So it's a lot of things that go into making the pie to be sustainable, and I think and environmentally friendly. And metal is one of those products that is extremely environmentally friendly just because of its cycle.
Interesting. And I think we actually answered the other question of experience with ACM and MCM panels versus aluminum plate wall panels and advantages of one over the other. I mean, we kind of talked a lot about different things. So I'm going to, it was an anonymous person. So if you have more questions around that, definitely reach out to us and we can bring that one back too. And then we did have a question, and I'm going to hold this question because I think we're going to be able to come back to some of this. And I want to talk just a little bit because I think it's really important for everyone out there watching this to kind of understand what the installers are going through when it comes to the job site realities. And really, that's about labor shortages and safety. I mean, this is every single day working out there, going through things. So, Anthony, let's start with you just on what you're seeing around labor shortages, safety. What are some of the job site really challenges, subcontractors in your world right now?
Yeah, I mean, in mountain towns and specifically metal, labor's tough because it is a high skill trade, right? You can't just get any guy from the corner and say, hey, let's put some metal up, and it ends up looking right. I think for productivity and job sites, at least here, frozen scaffolds and 2 feet of snow they're not excuses. They are just the realities of where we build. And so we got to make sure that safety is at the forefront of all these guys' minds. And it's not it's not an afterthought, right? And it's not just, hey, make sure you have your harness and make sure you know where you're tied off. It's, project managers having a good site plan, a safety plan to tell the crews, hey, this is where we should be looking to put up scaffolding or have your ladders. Hey, this is where the tie downs need to go. But also about the health of the team partners, the labor, and hey, do you have the proper clothing for the winter, or are you properly hydrated in the summer? And so it's a constant conversation of, yes, there's OSHA and there's these standards and whatnot, but really it boils down to their well-being, right? And you got to talk about things that include all of that for safety. Um, and so it's labor's tough, right? In especially in a high skill kind of area, but cross training, giving people opportunity, and having an onboarding program can help contractors alleviate some of that stress, because the labor that you do bring in, you typically can pay them more than other trades, right? Because they have a specialized skill set. And so it's just about letting them see the magic of metal and the opportunity that it has in front of them.
Isn't it? So true. And Patrick, I know you and I are both active with CTE. We're working with the NRCA on kind of stuff, but what are you seeing with some of your challenges in the field right now?
Yeah, so I think, a lot of what Anthony said, I could definitely relate to. For metal specifically, the relationships we've had with our installers have dated back for a while. So we tend to kind of stick to that and kind of stick to what we know, because it's something where, to Anthony's point, you can't really just take anybody and stick them on metal. It's not as forgiving as some other applications. So we really want to make sure that who we have out there is a good representation of us. And we're pretty steady with metal. We're not growing significantly. So for that reason, it's been good to us with the installers that we've had. But like anything else, right? Safety is a big part of it. Like any type of roofing or siding project. We've got two completely different markets that we service. So, we deal with some of the winter stuff like Anthony talked about, and then we deal with the heat as well, especially in the Florida market, but in both markets, right? So I don't really have too much more to add. I think Anthony kind of, hit the nail on the head, pun intended. So yeah, I think we do pretty much the same stuff.
Let's talk about the whole building and let's about and what we're seeing out in the field. So Nigel, let's start with you. What are your challenges and what are you seeing when you're erecting and putting?
Yeah, well, on the install side, it's skill, but not to the extent of putting on a metal roof. The skills gap, I think, is real in metal roofing. I'm sure Bobby will attest to it. Anytime you put down a manufacturer's warranted roof, the requirements behind that are just so in depth, because they've got cover over cover over cover over cover to make the warranty work. So the skills gap is real. For safety and timelines and productivity, safety is obviously an ongoing training, toolbox talks, all those sorts of things, compliance. Part of it is actually making sure that the general contractor or whoever has authority on the job site is actually meeting the OSHA requirements as well, and the other trades are as well. So that's a big part of it. Timelines and productivity for us with Alpha, that was one of the problems we solved pushing that new product into the market, was schedule compression and timelines and productivity. And then, to managing subcontractors, we pay weekly to our subcontractors. We're not as brave as Bobby to put everybody on payroll on the install side of our business. But we pay our subcontract installers weekly. They draw on Tuesday, they get paid on Thursday. That helps buy some loyalty, to be honest, to the product and to the company. It also helps us when we need help, be able to ask that and get that help when we need it in order to help push something through. And then the vendor relationships are deep and well maintained. However, the pressures that we feel in the market, with the amount of available work that's out there, with the pricing pressure, we're obviously applying pressure to those vendors as well. Everybody realizes the world that we're in right now, especially on the commercial side. So it's hyper competitive, and to be competitive, unfortunately, relationships are super important, but price wins a lot. And after 18 months of things being level or slightly down, you start seeing things happen in the market that make you question, what are they doing? Why are they doing that? And they're applying pressures that are unnecessary. And so you have to be able to respond to that. So it becomes a team effort between the manufacturing or the vending group, the way we design, and then get a couple of points out of the whole entire system and go to market that way.
I mean, there's just, when you think about all these things, so Bobby, what are you seeing? I mean, the fact that you have all W-2 and hiring, how are you doing with hiring, and what are you seeing on the job sites in training?
It's impossible. I mean, to echo everybody's point, like these trades are extremely specialized. Like there's no other way to say it. These are extremely, extremely specialized trades. Like, not to take anything away from people that are specialized in electrical or HVAC, but there's a million electrical contractors out there. There are not a million, certified, proper, to be able to install metal roofs, metal wall panels, metal buildings, etc. So the labor force out there, you either have to put it together and train it up, which takes an excessive amount of time, effort, and responsibility, and that hinders your growth overall as a company, because you can only grow as fast as you're being able to train the people. So I go back to, I try to echo Mike Rowe, with all his talk nowadays, where he's like, labor, construction trades, this is where it's at. Yes, people need to get involved in it, because, the people who are doing these specialty trades, to echo the other points made by both Patrick and Anthony, is that they're being paid extremely well. These are not, just over minimum wage jobs. Somebody who comes in and who really does is going to make a very, very, very good living, because it's worth paying them a lot of money to stay on when they're getting it and they're learning and they're becoming more certified. So the skills gap is hard. And for us, it's even harder because, again, we're not hiring subcontractors. The managing of subcontractors, in our mind, it's a problem because we lose quality control. Like, we don't want to lose quality control. We want to put out the best product of anybody. And the problem is out there in this business, there is a lot of mom and pops with a pickup truck that think that they can do this work because it's easy. And then you end up with a problem at the end of the day, because you hired the mom and pop with a pickup truck with a cheaper price, and it's not the way to go. Doesn't mean that as a massive company as we are, that our price is that much more expensive. My price is not double what somebody else's price is. I still have to be price competitive in the market, but I can't manage a sub and make sure that they're meeting our standards of quality on a national level. It just doesn't happen. And then to the safety point, with the labor, safety is not a question. There is no question of safety on the projects as far as we're concerned. We are a safety-driven company. It is in our name. It's in our mission statement. And I think that everybody needs to do better, no matter what side of the business that you're on, with safety, because at the end of the day, you're only as good as the people who are performing the work for you. And at the end of the day, you want them to go home. You need them to go home to their family. And so safety can't be compromised under any circumstance. You got to put it into the jobs. You have to bid it into the jobs, and you have to set a standard that's different. We go over and above the OSHA requirements as a company. That is a standard that we set. And I will tell you that in this day and age, in a safety-driven day and age in the industry across the board, that does get us jobs, because people want to see that how much you're safety driven. And it's one thing to say, yeah, my guys are OSHA certified. It's another thing to have your safety plans and all your safety, products and everything in place, where you're driving that as a piece of the business, and that will get you bigger work, bigger customers, and a better outcome, because everybody's working to a better standard at that point. So, and then as far as timelines and productivity, look, that's just a management of how you manage your company. I mean, people want a high safety, they want a highly skilled labor, but they want the timeline to still be what they want the timeline to be. So that's a balancing act that you're trying to control. And that's what's hard for all of us who, all of us here on this panel, we have to manage that. How do we get the job done effectively, efficiently, on time, on budget, and meet the standard, but still do it with labor shortages, the skill gaps that we have to train up, all the safety that we have to pay for, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a fine balance, but there are plenty of companies out there that are doing it. And by the way, Heidi, I love seeing two of my projects up on the screen. The red building was one of mine, and this picture is one that we're currently.
It's mine. There you go. Yeah. Well, and the reason I'm doing that is you guys, I'm serious. We're going to have to come back again. This has just been so great. We've had so much great conversation questions. So I want to make sure we get to a couple questions. These are manufacturing questions that I want to put towards Bobby and Nigel. But Bobby, since you were talking, I'll start with you. And the question was, have those with custom products considered design features that would enable lower skilled workforce? So what is the kind of what are we creating that maybe helps with that?
I don't know that you can, because like the products that we deal with are not hard products to deal with. I think it's more of, I think there's too many people that look at it and say that they can do it and think that it's easy. So like I dare to say, and I apologize if this offends anybody, but people are ignorant to this business a little bit. And I think they're ignorant to the extent of what it takes to go into it. Like the required butyl and the mastic that's used and the sequence of which things have to be installed is just a sequence. And I think that people become ignorant to that. And so it's not overly difficult, but you got to go through some training, take some time, learn it. And I think everybody, again, we live in a society right now where people want to start at the top as opposed to kind of working their way up and learning it the right way. And so I think that that's the problem in there. So I don't know that you can actually take our product and make it and kind of dumb it down, for lack of a better word, to make it easier to install, so you can reduce, or acquire more labor force at a more reasonable price. I think it's let's all participate and do a better job in training up the people and getting them to where they need to be, so then they can see that this is a great job, it's a great future, and you can make good money doing it.
I love it. Nigel, you want to follow up on that?
Yeah, no, I'd agree with Bobby that it's not getting, it's becoming, the products are becoming more and more, I think, advanced. The energy code has a little bit to do with that, right? So some of the requirements, continuous insulation, that sort of stuff. How do you go through that? The IMPs. I think that you're always just adding to a product. And to Bobby's point, the perception of a low barrier to entry type business, I think, is predominant in our world, and it's not really the case. There is a required skill set. It takes time. I'm sure Anthony and Patrick know, water is the biggest, concern, obviously, when you're putting a roof on and you get a bad install and you've got a problem forever. And I think the industry as a whole, especially in the roofing industry, the metal roofing industry, which is actually my background, it has done itself no favors by not training people and just putting people out on a roof, and then a metal roof leaks. And everyone thinks every metal roof leaks, and it's not true. But that's the perception in the industry, because we did a really bad job of training people, of teaching them the whys do you do things the way you do it. And I know, like, the Metal Building Constructors Erectors Association is doing a good job of trying to build that back. Individuals are doing that. Obviously, you don't want leaks on the buildings you're putting on, but the industry perception as a whole is not great. Hopefully, it's getting better. But we did ourselves no favors by promoting a low barrier to entry, chucking a truck. Mum and pop can get on, do a roof, and then just move on to the next one. It did us no favors over the last 30 years.
Yeah. Yeah, skilled labor. We are skilled. We are craftsmen and women, and that's really where it's at with all of them. I know there were a couple questions that I didn't get to, and I want to say from Brian and Gia, feel free, Heidi at rooferscoffeeshop.com. I will get you connected with this team, and we can also follow up on some of those. But gentlemen, we have had such an amazing conversation, and Kaylin's probably like, you only have 1 minute left. So I wanted to make sure we got this up on the screen. This is your chance. Come and see us at MetalCon. I know Central States will be there. I know Bobby will be there. We are going to have our sound stage there. You'll be able to come and visit with us at the Metal Coffee Shop and find out more about what's going on with these panels. In fact, we have our coffee conversations, which will be a similar conversation just like today that we will be doing during MetalCon Live. So please visit us at the Metal Coffee Shop, and please, if you need another code for a discount on your MetalCon, there you go. Kaylin, all yours, my dear. Thank you, gentlemen, so much for all of your wisdom and knowledge today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. And thank you to all of our attendees today for joining us live. If you're watching us in the future on YouTube or any other platform, thank you for being here as well. Again, make sure that if you need those credits or a certificate of attendance, just fill out that very quick survey at the very end. And that survey is just to make sure we have your contact information 100% correct. And if you have any further questions, once again, you can contact Heidi, or you can reach out to MetalCon and we can get that information over to her and her team as well. We so appreciate you all being here. We look forward to seeing you all at MetalCon in just a few short months. If you have any further questions about the show, about any other aspects of metal construction and metal roofing, reach out to Heidi or myself with MetalCon. Thank you all again. Have a great rest of your day. We'll see you at the next one. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.